This is about a trip that me and Townsend and Aubrey and Maddie took in 1965 across the big mud holes into Petersville, Alaska. The highway department had cleared a right of way all the way into the dirt road that's in Petersville, and we would use Townsend's four-wheel drive truck all chained up with winch on the front to go across the major mud holes until we got into a good dirt road that went to a mining camp on the Petersville Road. There was a old roadhouse there called Shorty Bradley's place that we used to stay at and do some fishing in Peters Creek. We caught beautiful rainbow trout in that creek. We killed a bear back in there. We saw many moose back in there. We shot moose back in there on some years in the wintertime, and generally just had a good time in there. We'd go in and spend 2 or 3 days, camp out in a tent, and cook these fish up and eat them, and then we would do hunting or other stuff in there. This particular trip, we had to winch our way through some of these holes, and you can see from the pictures that the mud holes were pretty radical mud holes. That wasn't something that a normal vehicle would go across, but we've made it across all these mud holes and got into the Petersville Road, set up our tent there by an old barn but back by Shorty's place, and fished for our supper. And we'd catch a nice rainbow trout and then cook them right there in the camp for chow. That was one of the main mud holes that we had to go through there. That once you got through there, you could pretty well make it the rest of the way. There was a couple more creeks you had to cross, but crossing the creeks themselves was not the hard part. It was the mud and the muck that was just before every creek that made it hard. Here's Townsend sitting in front of one of our cooking fires, and we're sitting by our garage in just this side of Peters Creek, right back behind Shorty Bradley's place. We used the old Army 5-man tents and set up a good camp there, and then we'd just travel the road and fish for grayling, fish for rainbow trout, and there was really beautiful trout in this Peters Creek. Townsend sitting there getting all smoky by our campfire. That's how the truck usually looked after we went through one of those mud holes. It was muddy. Here's an old moose standing back there in the forest looking at us. This is Mt Mckinley. This is from south of Mt Mckinley, which is seldom seen this side of the mountain. Usually you see it from the highway side or from the north side, but this is looking at it directly from the south. Beautiful views of Mt McKinley from back in on the Petersville Road. The reason why we went back in there so much is very few people could make it back in there, so we really worked at getting back in there. We carried PSP to lay down and cross some of the mud holes. We had a winch on the truck, a power takeoff winch, and we would winch across these big mud holes in order to get in there. And then once we get in there, there was all kinds of game. We shot a grizzly bear back in there. We shot ptarmigan back in there. We shot a moose, 2 or 3 moose back in there, and we caught lots and lots of fish. This is early in the summer when the snow is still just melting off the north sides of the mountains there. I think we were up there at this particular time looking for bears. We didn't find a bear this particular trip, but we did shoot a bear up in there later on. This is Shorty Bradley's house. Shorty Bradley raised bloodhounds, and he would track down wounded bears and things for hunters and guides and things. This is a string of grayling we caught up there on a little creek up north of Petersville. This is the Jeep coming up the road from Shorty Bradley's roadhouse on up to the north of the place there. This is an eagle sitting up in the top of a tree. Here's an old porcupine coming to check our truck out, find out what's going on around there. This is one of the creeks that we used to go in fishing, walking down along the edge of this creek and fish for grayling. That place was just loaded with 12, 14-inch grayling. Nice little stream here for grayling fishing. You can walk along there, although there's no trails along these things. This is Shorty's roadhouse there at Petersville. He lived here with an old Indian woman that had a big wart on her nose. And his bed was just covered with bear skins that they used for a mattress. They didn't really have a mattress. They just used old bear skins for a mattress. Here's another picture of our camp that we got set up. And that's